The Fog.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unknown came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
The Fog is a movie about, well, a killer fog. Now, at face value, that might not sound like a solid idea for a horror movie, but when has a random idea ever stopped horror movie makers from making a movie? The Fog is actually a pretty serious movie, so let's carefully walk into the unknown as spoilers engulf our eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. The movie starts off with an old man telling a scary ghost story to a couple of kids about a ship traveling in a thick fog, desperately trying to find the lighthouse to get to shore. But they were misled by another burning light and sailed towards it, but like a moth to the flame, when they reached the light it led them to a watery grave. And as legend has it, when the fog returns, the ghosts of those who perished will search for whatever caused their demise. I wonder if that'll be relevant later.
That was sarcasm!
We then jump to the mainland, Antonio Bay, and on this night we meet some of our characters. Nick, a driver, is going down the road and picks up a hitchhiker, Elizabeth. We also meet our radio voice, Stevie. This night, a strange fog goes near the town and any little thing goes crazy. Car horns go off, chairs move, the windows on Nick's car explode, so he takes Elizabeth back to his place, and since she is attractive and he is played by Nick Castle, they bone.
Giggity. What? Nothing, it's stupid.
I can only think of 2 movies where this guy just easily beds the hot chicks, but I'm curious how many more movies do this with Nick Castle. At sea, some sailors are thinking of calling it a night and go home, but the fog is going right towards them. Right away, the entire crew gets killed by ghosts.
Yes! Yes! Oh, yeah!
It's not ambiguous at all. They show them die and who kills them. Solid way to start a movie. The next day, our driver Nick goes to check out where the sailors are, and the hitchhiker Elizabeth decides to stick around a bit longer just because she wants a little more of that D. Nick is worried because the guys didn't come in, and that's not normal. They go out to sea and they find the boat, but there's no crew. Well, except one guy. We get a little familiar with some more characters, an older woman who is the wife of one of the sailors and her assistant. Their names don't really matter. They go to visit the local father and he tells them he found a journal that belonged to his grandfather, and it tells the real story that was brought up at the campfire earlier. So what really happened was that his grandfather and 5 other founders intentionally made the ship crash into the rock so that they could get the gold from the ship and fund the new settlement, which is now Antonio Bay. Huh. I guess that story at the beginning was important. Who would have guessed? And on top of that terrible story, the movie takes place on the 100th anniversary of that murder. The body of the sailor is brought in to get an autopsy, and while the men are away discussing how the man's body doesn't make any sense, Elizabeth has her back turned and the body gets up and lunges at her and collapses on the floor. The men come in to see if she's okay, and then we jump to the next scene.
What? Oh, come on!
Are we seriously not going to address the fact that she was attacked by a zombie? This reminds me of the time that I reviewed A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Nancy is getting tested at the sleeping facility and she wakes up with gray hair and magically has Freddy's hat in her hand and nobody said a thing about it? Like, where was she hiding it? In her cooch? Anyways, the news is broken to the old lady that her husband died, and Stevie is on the phone with her husband while he becomes the next victim of the fog. Oof, that's rough. Then the fog goes into where her son is staying. Double rough. We see his caretaker get killed, most depressing death in the movie. The son is able to get out of there in time thanks to Nick and Elizabeth. All of our characters rendezvous at the church with the father, except for Stevie, who is still stuck at the radio station tower. At the church, the father figures that the ghosts are here to claim 6 victims because that's how many killed the sailors and get their gold back. At the church, they find a giant gold statue and offer it to the ghosts, just in the nick of time because Stevie was almost fish hooked at the tower. Side note, a fish hook is an awesome weapon in the movie, but it would suck pretty hard to get killed by one of those because more than likely, it won't be a kill shot. It'll take a while. The ghosts seem to disappear and the father is puzzled why they didn't claim him as their 6th victim, and on cue the ghosts come back and take him out and the movie ends. What a solid movie. John Carpenter can sell atmosphere, tension, hopelessness, and sad deaths really well. I'm happy to add this to my collection of solid 80s movies. Though it's not perfect, on top of my previous jokes and critiques, there were a few more that I noticed. Like, if they stole the gold from the sailors to create the town, then there wouldn't be a giant gold statue hidden away. It would have been spent on building the town itself. It's only established that the father is related to the original 6 murderers, and the other 5 were just random. So it makes the vengeful spirits kinda douchey. Also, why wait 100 years to exact your revenge? Why not try like every year? Hell, if I was turned into a vengeful spirit, and sometimes I am, I'd only adhere to the time. Like, if I was turned into a ghost at 1:15 a.m., you can be damn sure every day at 1:15 a.m., I'm coming for you. Also, I am pretty sure Stevie gets a hook in the neck when she's on the tower, though it seems to go away like it never happened. But despite all those comments, they were definitely not enough to deter me from my enjoyment of the film and my recommendation of it. Tomorrow we're watching The Third Eye.